thing you may notice if you take a look at a fire is that the flames of the fire seem to go up, almost towards the sky. Smoke tends to rise out of the fire as well. Everything moves upwards. Anything that's heated, especially in a fluid like air or water, tends to rise upwards. And this process of rising upwards is because hot air has more energy than cold air. So if you have hot air here, cold air here, the hot air will tend to move up. This happens by heaters, it happens by any kind of heat source. Now, whenever that heat reaches the ceiling, like this one here, it has to go somewhere. It kind of rolls around up at the top, but eventually it gets pushed back down as it starts to cool down once it's really far away from the heat source, and new hot air can rise. This starts to create this circular motion. And inside of Earth's mantle, that circular motion is so powerful it can push the plates of our crust apart. This process is called convection. And convection is a word you may know on an oven. You may have seen a button on the oven that says convection or conv. And what that means is that they're going to use the fan in the oven to blow the air around and move it in a circle to heat it up faster. But understanding convection is going to be key to understanding how our continents move, how mountains form, how volcanoes occur in every part of the planet that is controlled by our mantle. So I'm going to show you how this works. Now, right now, the hot water that represents the mantle is the exact same height as the rest of the water, so it's not really spilling out at all. But it is hot, and you can kind of see these little particles of water starting to form on the outside of it. What I'll do next is add the layers of cold water onto the side. And as we add enough of them, eventually the water level should be high enough that these two things start to mix. I'll add as many as I can fit. I think I can get one more in there. All right. So now let's take a look at what we're seeing. The hot water, which we can see up here, is floating up out of the jar. And my finger was covering that. And it's starting to spread to the left and right of that jar. The cold water, on the other hand, is starting to sink down. You can see the blue color going down. Now watch for the motion of the water. What direction do you see all this water moving in? What shape do you see? If you look closely, you can see the particles of water moving in a circle, with the blue little sprinkles moving directly down in the center along the side of the jar. And then up top, water is moving from left to right. This process of spinning is called convection, where cold water and cold fluid sinks down because it has less energy. And all this cold fluid, you can almost see it's almost like snow or ice crystals falling off of these ice cubes. And those are actually sprinkles that I put in there that are falling down to the bottom. Whereas over here, hot tends to rise. And so the warm water that's inside this jar is moving upwards because it has more energy. Inside of Earth's mantle, this same spinning is taking place, with the cold parts of the mantle falling back down and the hot parts of the mantle going back up. When that happens, anything that's floating on the mantle will move ever so slowly. And even these ice cubes have shifted a little bit since I put them in. If you look closely, you'll see the little sprinkles and the ice cubes slowly moving around based on whatever is happening underneath them. As things move around underneath them, these things, you can imagine, if they were continents, might form mountains, trenches, volcanoes, as these pieces of solid are moving around in the liquid they're floating on. We have to imagine that everything that we are standing on is actually floating on magma in the mantle, and the same thing is happening underneath.